feeling grateful, unsure, powerful, inseparable from God. That has been a huge theme for not only me, but for the collective. That you are inseparable from God. It's like God has us tethered in the most beautiful way, not against our will. And lets us pack our little bag like they used to in the cartoons in the 60s and 70s. Pack up all our things in a little kerchief and tie it to the end of a stick and throw it over our shoulder, saying, I'm bad, I'm going for real this time. I'm going for real, and I'm not coming back. And God says, okay. And lets us get to the point that we are just so exhausted by ourselves. And then God takes that tether and reels us back in. Bashar, who is one of my favorite channels, Basher. Bashar talks about, always about our freedom of choice and our free will. And I completely lost my thought, and that's okay. But this feeling of being tethered to the divine, and this innate yearning inside of us to be able to act out and still be loved, to the point where we almost feel the need to constantly test that love, which is exacerbated in people like me who have relationship OCD. Always wanted to test the level of love based on perhaps words or actions or a person's ability to connect with me, whatever. And the divine says, I will be here. You could test me all you want. And I truly believe that that passage in the Bible about do not test the Lord your God is about not intentionally separating ourselves from God. Because in order to test God, we must create the illusion that we're separate from it. These last few weeks, I don't know. I feel like every time I come on here, I say, oh, the last few weeks have been the hardest. But I also know that in the collective, that has been the case too. And here we are in this full moon energy. Some things coming to full circle and some things just beginning a cycle of a full circle motion. But I truly believe that those weeks where I feel are the hardest sometimes have the most powerful impact on my long-term health, my soul's health, my ability to self-soothe, and my ability to maintain the least amount of distance between me and God, the divine. To trust that we are not only inseparable, but that no one in this relationship wants to be separable. What would that feel like if that were true? If that were actually true, if that were actually true, that God the divine never ever wants to separate from you, regardless of how you feel, what you've said and not said, what you've thought and not thought, what your intentions were or weren't. What if that were true? How would that make an impact on your life and your choices? And what are 3 things you would do differently if that were true? Pain is not a punishment. Pain is a measurement. A measurement of what it is that you want and how far you perceive that you are from it. Think about when you've been in love before and you've had some sort of a physical crisis in the middle of that euphoric feeling of being in love, and the physical crisis barely affected you because there wasn't a sense of I'm far from what I'm wanting. There wasn't a sense of I'm disillusioned or I can't be with God. Because when we're in love, we are so happy with who we're being. And what if it were possible to be happy with who we're being without it being the result of externally projected love to a parent, a partner, or even an animal? And on the flip side, what would it feel like if that weren't wrong? What would it feel like if that was a representation of the best of us, the best and highest version of us? Was to project our love externally and internally. I have had the experience of being bedridden the past few days, and I've had the experience of such unbearable pain, but only in the moments when I've wanted to get up, not necessarily when I was lying down. And surrendering yet to another depth of surrender. And not making it mean anything about the prognosis and the ultimate outcome. And how many times have you had that same experience? How many times have you had the experience where you were so clear and true to who and what you're connected with, i.e. the divine God within you, that nothing that came into your experience as far as obstacles could detour or sway your knowing that God is here for you, with you, and working through you and as you? And if not, how can you bring that into your experience? What is the language to call that forth? You can repeat after me if you'd like. I command the possibility that I know without a doubt that the divine is with me and for me. Now notice as you say this, the different frequencies that might pop up, or different voices that might pop up in resolute opposition to that statement. And just notice them with love. And if it feels right, you could say cancel, cancel, cancel to those voices Or you could say, I'll talk to you later. Right now I want to focus on my closeness with the divine. Or you can focus so intently on both frequencies at the same time. And the more powerful frequency, which is a part of you that knows that you are inseparable from God, will alchemize the opposite frequency that you're holding and transform it into that which you're wanting to experience, that inseparability from the divine. Well, why would God want to be inseparable from me? Because God doesn't exist without you. That's how important and essential you are. But nobody wants to tell you that. People want to try to convince you that you're replaceable. Try to convince you, even ridiculously, sometimes that they can get a new daughter, or they could get a new son, or they could get a new best friend, or they could get a new partner. But that is humanity. That's something only the human mind can perceive, because God cannot perceive that. God doesn't have the capacity. Because in the realm God exists in, God must maintain the frequency of the divine. God can't come down to these levels of human thinking. That's why we have liaison beings like the angelic realm to speak to us in these ways. Or Jesus or Buddha. God's whole purpose is to be. And not be affected by anything but its own beingness. But wow, the power behind that beingness is profound, isn't it? The love behind that beingness, the acceptance, the non-judgment behind that beingness is profound. And it's yours. And it's mine. I wanted to share about kind of the more difficult physical challenges, but I also, at the same time, wanted to share about how magical we are. And I'm asking the divine to show us collectively, as we transmit this frequency, where they can meet in the middle and where they can alchemize each other, so that the feeling and the visceral experience in our day-to-day lives and from moment to moment is the highest and best possible. Magic, 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 miracles, miracles, miracles. What is magic without desperation? What is a miracle without desperation? What is the frequency of a miracle without the attachment of desperation? It's more in the realm of the frequency of pleasant surprise. That's what it feels like to me. And what if your world was full of pleasant surprises? And what if you were full of pleasant surprises? When's the last time you took an action, or said something even, that felt like a pleasant surprise to someone else? To the point where they said, "Oh my God, nobody's ever spoken to me like that before. That feels like a breath of fresh air. Nobody's ever been so raw and vulnerable and compassionate to me. That feels like a breath of fresh air." That's the frequency of pleasant surprise. It's not so dramatic. It's not so out there and unreachable and unattainable and inaccessible. I am the frequency of a pleasant surprise, we can say. I am that I am. I am the frequency of pleasant surprise. And it just takes one pleasant surprise to shift my energy. And how can you gift that frequency of pleasant surprise to those around you that need it? How can you gift that frequency of pleasant surprise? Perhaps it's when you get off the phone with me right now to text somebody you haven't talked to in 20 years and just say, I don't know why you popped up into my frequency, but man, I would love to send you some unconditional love right now. Because guess who God works through and as? You. What does it feel like to be not only on the receiving end of magical and miracles, but on the giving end of magic and miracles? And perhaps you're not ready to give $1 million out to your favorite charity organization. But what would it feel like if it was tangible? Right now, my prayer is for playfulness. Playfulness that doesn't hurt. Playfulness that feels easy and in alignment with my body's highest and best good as well. Has anybody been punished for playing before? Do you have a memory when you were a child or even another life where you were punished for playing? And are you willing to release that trauma now? And download the possibility that I can play all I want and it only brings freedom and joy and love and laughter. And sending forgiveness and joy and love and laughter and playfulness to the person that was the one that punished you for being playful. Whether it was a parent or a teacher or a sibling. And why does magic have to feel so far away from you? You can ask this question to God right now. Is it okay for me to feel like I'm magic? Ask. But just a question. And wait for the answer. I can't tell you how many times I've been with clients or even loved ones in a transient state, when I was in a transient state with the divine. And how many times I said, no, I can't do that. God doesn't want me to do that. That's a counter to my belief systems, and I can't think that way, or I can't believe that way. That's not possible for me. You know what I say every time? I challenge those beliefs immediately, and I say, I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to ask God. Ask God right now, is it okay for me to feel good? Even though my son just died? Is it okay for me to feel good even though somebody that I loved for 25 years just broke up with me? Is it okay for me to feel good? No, I'm sure it's not okay for me. No, just ask, I say, ask. Is it okay for me to feel free? Is it okay for me to listen to other people with different belief systems and different cultures and different religion and backgrounds? Is it okay, God, for me to do that? Don't listen to me. Ask the question. And you'll have a visceral feeling of the response in your body. There's nothing wrong with you. Certainly nothing wrong with the question or asking. And if you feel stuck around the asking, the invitation is to release the trauma around having asked questions in the past, whether it was being punished for asking questions to an authority figure or a loved one or a teacher, or asking questions to a police officer, whatever it was. I invite you to release that trauma and create the possibility right now with me that it's okay to ask questions. So it's okay for me to ask questions. I create the possibility that it's okay for me to ask questions, even if they're in ignorance, even if they're coming from an ignorant place. Now, what question have you been scared to ask God, the divine spirit source? What question have you been afraid to ask? Now, if you're in a space where you have a clearing to ask a question that you didn't have before, the invitation is to ask the question now. And if you're still unsure, to re-ask the question, God, are you sure it's okay for me to ask this question? And again, listen in beautiful sovereignty for the response to come viscerally into your third eye center or your body somewhere or your energetic field. And when you finally get that answer, yes, of course it's okay, ask your question. And if the answer you get is really powerful and beautiful, maybe go a little further and ask, is it okay for me to actually believe this is true? Is it okay for me to actually download that and reprogram my mind that this is true and okay for me? And again, listen for the answer. I don't try to fight with anybody anymore. I don't have it in me to fight. And I'm told not to fight, actually. And that's the hardest thing for us, isn't it? We were growing up trying to fight for our autonomy, trying to fight for relationships, trying to fight for that scholarship to the school, trying to fight for our basketball team, fight for our mental health, fight for our physical health. Why? Because the undertone underneath, the underpainting of the belief that we must fight is the belief that we are not worthy enough without fighting. Back to the Stone Age baby, but certainly back to gladiator times. We're not enough without fighting. Because we were born into ranks and social pacts that disallowed us from being close to God unless we fought. Well, is that true? Maybe ask God that now. Must I fight for my life? Or maybe, just maybe, am I all that is? Maybe, just maybe, there is a legion of angels and guides and ancestors that are fighting for me, so that I might step into the deepest alchemic presence of the goddess or the god or the divine that I was built and created to be on this planet right now. would appreciate, as always, your continued prayers, and I'm grateful for your continued prayers. What is the opposite of feeling pain? Feeling joy and security. And I continue to keep the feeling of the collective in my heart and my soul too. And your prosperity and your families and your safety. And your conscious involvement that involves the least amount of pain possible. And that's another question you can ask. God, is this possible without pain? Can I learn this lesson, or can I experience this expansive growth and evolution and revolution without pain? Is that possible? And is that okay? Ask. And you shall be given. And you shall find. And the door shall be opened up to you. It must be. So let's step away from this disillusioned, fragmented experience of life and step into this united, uncompartmentalized, but yet unbridled way of life together. I love you so, so much. So much. You don't know how much. But I hope one day you do.